Hi, everyone. I hope you're all doing great. I see a bunch of you. Um, Please turn your video on if that's possible so I can see your faces. It makes it much more interactive when I can see your faces. If not, that's totally okay. Okay, so I want to welcome everyone. This is our 6th Zoom class of this kind of summer virtual semester. If this is your first time joining us today, I know it is for a few of you. Just a few reminders. Firstly, if you would like to contribute something to the class, ask a question or a relevant comment, please raise your hand virtually. You could do this on your phone by clicking on More and then Raise Hand, or on your computer by clicking on Participants and then Raise Hand. And then lastly, if you have not done so already, you must be in the Midler Senior Technology WhatsApp chat so that you could receive messages from me and updates about the classes. So please make sure you do that. If you do not know how to do that, please reach out to me today and I will help you with that process. But please make sure that gets done as soon as possible. And there are also a few of you who have requested to be on an email list as opposed to WhatsApp. That's also a possibility, but just please let me know and I can make that happen. Okay, Joe, next slide. So for those of you who were here last week, we learned how to use HealthSync, an app to manage our health data, how to use the Apple Health app where we could track our steps and our heart rate, and how to create a healthy workspace by making sure the computer's at a good location, the keyboard's at a good distance, the mouse, all of that. We learned, I think, 6 tips. And today we're going to be looking at a few things. Firstly is a tool called voice recognition, which is using your voice to control your phone. And there's a lot of things that really fascinating information I'm going to share with you today. Next is how we can explore the internet. And then lastly, we'll end with a few minutes in the breakout rooms. Okay, so Jill, let's go to the next slide. So we're going to start today with voice recognition. If you have not heard of this, if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is, first of all, only accessible on smartphones. So if you do have a flip phone, unfortunately, you aren't fit for this. But it is also accessible on a device like a tablet or an iPad, and even newer televisions like an Amazon Fire and Apple TV. This is all accessible, but mainly it's used on smartphones such as the iPhone and the Samsung and the Google. So if you have any of those, this works for you. So Apple's term for their voice recognition, Joe, you can go back, is called SIRI, and that is kind of the keyword. That is the name of the person that's kind of sitting behind your phone and can answer all your questions and help you with things just by using your voice. So we're now going to show you how to access SIRI, and there's 2 different ways depending on what phone you have. So Julia, go ahead.
Okay, so depending on the model of your phone, whether you have a new iPhone or an old iPhone, you either have a home button at the bottom of your screen or you just have a flat screen on the entire phone. So in the older versions with the home button, in order to access Siri, you're going to hold down that home button, that little circle on the bottom of your phone, and that's going to access Siri. Siri's going to come onto the screen, and if your volume's on, you can hear her say something. If you don't have a home button on the bottom of your screen, you're going to hold down the power button, which is the button on the right side of your screen. It turns your phone on and off. If you hold that button down, that will also access Siri. So depending on your model, you either will hold down the home button or the power button. And then another thing that you can do, in settings, you can allow Siri to hear your voice. And so instead of having to press a button, you can just say to your phone, "Hey Siri," and Siri will pop onto your phone and you don't need to press any buttons. So this is good if you're across the room and you want to talk to Siri, tell her to call somebody. You don't need to be near your phone. You could just say, "Hey Siri, call," and then give a name of somebody in your contacts instead of having to either hold down the home button or hold down the power button.
Okay, Joe, can you share your phone screen? 1 second. Before Julia continues, I just want to show you how to access the Hey Siri in your settings. I'm assuming most of you have the phone with the home button, that circle button at the bottom of your screen. You just hold on that. It's pretty easy. But for newer phones, you have that power button, and then Hey Siri is kind of it's only for the newer phones. But you can give this a try and see if it works. So Joe, can you show open settings for a second? And then type into the search bar at the top Hey Siri. You can click on that first one, and the first option says listen for Hey Siri. If you have that turned on, that means that you can say Hey Siri whenever you want, and the phone will automatically activate Siri, and it will ask for you to say something next. But you have to make sure that that switch is turned on. Okay, so there are a few categories of how you could use Siri. The first one we're going to look at is for call and texts. All right, Julie, go ahead.
All right, so using Siri, you're able to make many phone calls and send text messages to people without even opening the phone app or without opening the messages app. So let's say you don't want to open those apps. You can just say, Hey Siri, or you can hold down on the button and say, call mom on speaker. And that will call your mom using Siri without ever opening the app or finding the contact, and it will call your mom directly. Another thing you could do is you can send text messages through Siri. So if Joe would say to Siri, Hey Siri, or if he holds down the button and says, send Jordan Mittler a message.
What do you want to say?
So there's, Hi Jordan, how are you today? Question mark.
Here's your message. Ready to send it?
Send.
Send.
Okay, it's sent.
Okay, so as you can see, together, Joe and I composed a message to Jordan without ever typing anything. We just spoke to Siri, and Siri typed up exactly what we said. And then at the end, Siri wanted us to confirm that we wanted this message sent. We told her to send it, and she sent the message to Jordan. A lot of times it's very helpful to read the message over before you tell her to send it. Sometimes Siri mixes up what you're trying to say, and the message does not come across the way that you wanted it to. So it's good to proofread the message before you tell Siri to send that message. And once Siri sends that message, if Joe goes into his messages app, he could see this message to Jordan Mittler. It was sent, and Joe or I didn't even have to type that message to Jordan. So that's how you would send a message through Siri. Another thing that you can do on Siri, other than phone calls and text messages, is you can tell Siri to text on WhatsApp. So let's say you're using WhatsApp, you want to text somebody who's not in the country. You don't need to only use WhatsApp. You could say, Hey Siri, text Jordan Mittler on WhatsApp.
Text Jordan Mittler on WhatsApp.
What do you want to say?
Hi Jordan.
Here's your WhatsApp message. Ready to send it?
Send.
Send.
Okay, it's sent.
So you can also send messages to people through WhatsApp, not only iMessages. And now if Joe opens his WhatsApp, he could see that his message through Siri was sent on WhatsApp now. Also, you can ask Siri to read your messages. So if you just received a message, you were in the car and you can't read your messages on your phone, you could say, Hey Siri, read my last message. And Siri will now read your message.
Jordan Mittler said go back to phone. Would you like to reply?
No. So here you could see that Siri is reading the last message that Joe just received from Jordan. Also, Siri can finish the number for you in messages. So let's say somebody texts you and wants your contact information. And they say, Hi, Julia, can you send me your mom's number? So if
Who do you want to send it to?
Jordan. So if Joe goes on Siri, he can say, my mom's number is.
My mom's number is.
I can't make changes to your contacts. You can do it in the Contacts app.
My mom's number is.
My mom's number is.
You have 2 contacts named Mom. Tap the phone number of the one you'd like to see.
So there you see that Siri saves numbers and is able to access them. So Joe wouldn't need to type in that whole number if he wanted to text his mom's contact to somebody. And then one of the last things that I'm going to show you that Siri can do is Siri can also FaceTime. So if you don't want Siri to call somebody, you could say, hey Siri, FaceTime Jordan Mittler. And that.
Jordan Mittler.
Okay.
FaceTime Jordan Mittler.
Making a FaceTime call to Jordan Mittler.
So instead of having to open the app, Joe's able to FaceTime Jordan through Siri. But Jordan didn't answer. And then the last thing I'm going to show you on messages using Siri. So this is a little different than the things I've showed you. So far we've been using Siri on your home screen. This is if you just open Siri by holding down the button. But you can also use Siri in the Messages app. So if instead of writing out your whole message, you can just talk to Siri and Siri will scribe, she will write out your message. It's called dictation, and Siri will write out your message and send it for you. So if Joe holds down the Siri button on the bottom right,
Hi, Jordan.
his message is being written out and he doesn't need to type it, and then he can send the message as if he typed that message. So if you want to send a long message, you don't need to write out every word. You can just hold down that button and talk to Siri. Siri will type out your message for you, and then you can send it as usual.
Okay, so as you can see, Siri's a lot of fun, and you could use it for many different things. That first category was called call and texts, using Siri to send messages and make phone calls. I also want to point out that when you're texting someone a message, like when you're saying, let's say you're texting a friend and you say, my phone number is, it will automatically fill in your number. So you don't have to type in the number. Siri knows because your number's in your contacts that it will fill in that 10-digit number for you. Okay, so that is the first category. The next one we're going to look at is called everyday tasks. Joe, next slide. Joe, you can go back to your phone. There are a few things that you could use Siri for that are kind of just everyday things that, such as an alarm clock, or other kind of day-to-day timers and things like that. So the first thing we could do is set an alarm. So if Joe sets an alarm for, let's say, 8 o'clock, Joe, show them how to do that.
Set an alarm for 8 a.m.
I've set an alarm for 8 a.m.
And then the alarm's been set, and then at 8 a.m. tomorrow, Joe's phone will beep, just like an alarm will. Another thing you could do is split a check. If you are at a restaurant and you're with 4 people, and all 4 of them, you want to pay an equal price in the meal, you could say something like split a $94 check 3 ways.
Split a $94 check 3 ways.
With an 18% tip, the total would be $36.97 per person.
So you can see that it even incorporates tip, and it gives you 15%, 18%, and 20%, which is a really great tool. Next thing is reminders. You could say something like, remind me to pick up the dry cleaning when I leave work.
Remind me to pick up the dry cleaning when I leave work.
It looks like I don't have your contact details. To fix that, go to Siri Settings, tap on My Information, and choose your name from the list.
So if Joe said in his contacts that his work address is some address, then Siri will be able to recognize when Joe leaves that location because of Siri's functionality with the Maps app. Because Joe doesn't have his work address inside his contact, he can't say, like, Siri doesn't know where he works. So you have to make sure that you put that in your contact information if you want to use locations. You could also just say the statement like, remind me to pick up the dry cleaning at 2 p.m. tomorrow. And that's something you could do. And it will remind you at that time. But to use locations, like when I leave work, you have to have that information in your contact, which is by going to the Contacts app, and you have your phone number, your email address, and all that. You could add addresses like work, school, home, that information there. Another thing is if you use the calendar app on your phone, you could say something like, what does my day look like today?
What does my day look like today?
You have 2 more appointments today.
So you can put calendar events on your phone, and it will remind you of those events. You could ask what's on my schedule for today, and it will tell you those. And then lastly, something else you could do for everyday tasks is set a timer. So if Joe says set a timer for 2 minutes.
Set a timer for 2 minutes.
Okay, your timer is set for 2 minutes.
All right, you could X out of that.
I stopped the timer.
This is something you could use if you're baking, or if you need some sort of timer, you could use this as well. All right, so our next category, Joe, you could stay here, is music. Julie, go ahead.
Okay, so similar to asking Siri to set timers, alarms, you can also ask Siri to play songs for you. So you can say, play me something that I'd like, or play me a certain song that you like, and Siri will do that. Also depending on which music you have downloaded on your phone and which apps you have on your phone that play music. You can also tell Siri to name the song. So if you're listening to a really good song, you could say, hey Siri, what song is this? What's the name of this song? And Siri will be able to recognize the music playing in the background and tell you the name of the song that's being played. Another thing that you could do is if you're listening to music and you want to know when the song came out, you can say, hey Siri, when did this song come out? And Siri will be able to listen to the music that's being played in the background, and she'll be able to tell you both the name of the artist and when the song came out. So you can use Siri to listen to music on your phone and also to find out more information about music that's being played.
Right. Okay. And then next is smart home. This is something we're going to spend a few seconds on because it's not really applicable to most of us, including me. Smart home is a tool if you have accessories at your home that can be put together with your phone. I'll give an example. If you have a special light bulb or cameras around your house, or a door that's hooked up to technology, maybe a car that's hooked up to something like that, you could use smart home in Siri to do something like that. So I'll give an example, but we're not going to do it because I don't even have these devices. But like you could say, turn on the living room lights if you have a special light bulb in your living room, or if you say a keyword like I'm home, you could set that so it then turns on all your lights, opens up the door, something like that. You could say warm it up in here. If your thermostat is very technical, something cool you could do if you have a smart TV is if you say, what did they say? It will backtrack and you'll be able to rewatch that clip again if you missed a quote that was said. You could say show driveway camera, something cool that you can do if you have a camera in your driveway. And then you could also ask a question like, did I close the garage door? And it will confirm that it has actually been closed. So those are a few of the things that you could do on smart home. But I want to point out that for those tools, you need add-ons, you need accessories, you need a specific light bulb, a specific camera, a specific garage door to make these work. So many of you, including me, don't have these devices, so it really won't be applicable. Okay, so our next category, we have 2 more left. The next one's called knowledge on the go. Joe, you can go back to your phone. Julia, go ahead.
Okay, so Siri allows people to access knowledge. So if you have a quick question and you don't want to type it into Google, you're able to say, hey Siri, or click on Siri and ask her that question. This is also especially helpful for math. If you're doing, if you want quick math, you can say, hey Siri, what's 45 divided by 3? And Siri will quickly tell you the answer. You don't need to open the calculator app on your phone. Siri's able to do basic math like that very easily. You can also say something to Siri like, hey Siri, how do you say thank you in Mandarin? So Siri's able to translate from one language to another. And you wouldn't need to go into Google or Google Translate and type in thank you and switch it from language to language. Another thing that Siri can do is convert.
In Mandarin Chinese, thank you is 谢谢.
Okay, so Joe just did it. He said, how do you say thank you in Mandarin? And you could see that Siri was able to quickly change between the 2 languages. Another thing that Siri can do is convert between different units. So if Joe asks Siri, how many dollars are in 45 euros? Siri,
It's $52.44.
so Siri is able to convert between American dollars and European euros very easily, and you wouldn't need to type that into Google. Another thing that you could do is, let's say you want to watch a movie and you want to know, do people enjoy this movie? What are the reviews for this movie? You could say, hey Siri, what are the reviews for Booksmart? Booksmart's the name of a movie. And Siri would give
for Booksmart.
Booksmart has a 97% rating from Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay, so Siri will give you a lot of information on the movie. You can read reviews, you can watch the trailer, and then you can ultimately determine if you want to watch the movie. You can do math, like I said. If you ask Siri, what's the derivative of cosine? And Siri will be able to do that math for you and give it to you. Give you the answer very quickly.
Here's some information.
Okay, so as you can see, Siri knows all of this information and is able to give it to you very quickly. And then the last thing that you could do that Siri knows for knowledge is you can ask her what the score is of certain sports games. So let's say you wanted to ask Siri.
The New York Mets game.
The Mets lost in 10 innings to the Braves yesterday. The final score was 5-3.
So Siri will give you inning by inning and also the full score of the Mets game, that the most recent Mets game. So these are all different tools that you can use Siri for to find basic information, and a lot of times it's easier than going to Safari and typing in all of this information and asking Google these questions.
Great. And then our last category, just a few more powerful tasks you could use Siri for. If you have a bunch of photos from a location, for example, if you went on a 2-week vacation to Thailand, you could say something like, show me my pictures from Thailand last summer, and it will give you kind of
my pictures from Alaska last summer.
I didn't find any matching photos.
So if you went on some sort of vacation, you have a bunch of pictures from one location, it will kind of give you a slideshow of those pictures. Something else you could do is, if you have an accessory like AirPods or an Apple Watch and you don't know where it is, you could ask Siri to find them, and they'll play a beeping noise on them, a loud one, so you could find it if it's somewhere hidden in your house. You could do something like open the presentation I was working on yesterday. If you don't want to open it, it will basically go through your history and pull up the most recent thing you were working on. Something else you could do is search Google. You could say, hey Siri, search Google for photos of kitchens with white subway tile. And then lastly, you can pay virtual money. So I think you might know, on text messages, you could send money. You could use Venmo, a bunch of programs to send money from one person to another. You could use Siri for that, like send Jordan one, whatever it is.
I'll need to access your Venmo data to do this.
Joe, you don't have to do it now.
Is that okay?
But that's something you could also do on Siri. Okay, so we just covered a lot of different phrases you could use when using Siri, like asking different questions and kind of shortcuts of ways to make things happen. But I know that was a lot of material. Siri is a fun tool that you could play around with, either by holding down your circle home button or your power button, or by going to settings and turning on Hey Siri. Okay. Joe, let's go to the next slide. All right. So we are now going to move on to our next topic, which is exploring the internet. Joe, let's go to the next slide. So just before we get into this, I want to mention one or two terms that are kind of important that you know. As you can see, there are 4 pictures on the screen right now. Starting from left to right, we see Firefox, Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, and Safari. These are all referred to as internet browsers. If you have used the internet before, you have definitely seen at least one of these. Typically, if you're on an Apple computer, you use the one all the way on the right called Safari. If you're on a Microsoft computer or a PC, you're typically using one of the 3 towards the left. Google Chrome is also, and Firefox are also accessible on Apple computers. These all really do the same thing, and it's to give you access to the internet. They're all slightly different, but it really doesn't matter which one you use. When you get a computer or a device, one of these will be pre-downloaded with the phone, not something you have to go to the App Store for. If you want to download kind of an outsider, like on an iPhone, if you want to download Internet Explorer, which is typically used only on Microsoft, then you do have to go to the App Store. But you'll definitely have one of these accessible to you without going to the App Store. And these allow you to access information on the internet. So once you have this, you could then use the internet normally, but you need one of these. So to ask questions, to find answers to things, to find a location, to find pictures, that could all be done on the internet browsers. Now, each kind of company and database has what's called a website. Joe, let's go to the next slide. Now, the way I'm going to explain this is that all the websites are on what's called the World Wide Web, which is where all the information is stored. You might be familiar with that if you know that every website starts with the www. That stands for World Wide Web. But each kind of company, each business has its own website, and it all starts the same way, www. And I can compare this to like a building where you have all the different apartments, and they all start the same way. They all start with the same building number. They're in the same building, but their apartment number is the only thing that changes. So in a website, it's the website name that changes, and the format, like the zip code and the building number, that information stays the same. So Julia is now going to explain the format of a website. So you can go to the next slide.
Okay, so every website is going to start with www. Which stands for World Wide Web. And this doesn't need to be typed in every time you want to access a website. So let's say if you wanted to go to Google, you would be able to just type in Google or google.com without typing in the www, and it would bring you to Google. But World Wide Web is encrypted in each of the websites, even though you don't need to necessarily type it in. Then in the middle is going to be the website name. So that's unique to every single website. Right now we have the website for Google. So that's in the middle, that's the website name. But if you were going to any other website, that would be different. And then at the end is the .com. So that's the domain of this website. Google has .com. But there are other domains like .org or .edu. And that depends on the type of website that you're accessing. So for .org, that would be for nonprofit organizations, or .edu would be for educational websites. But it depends on the type of website that you're accessing. The domain will be different. So for Google, the domain is .com. And so this, in total, www.google.com, that's the full website for Google.
And then there are a few more examples, if Joe goes to slide 15, of when different domains are used, such as Amazon, KJ, and NYU. You can see why .org and .edu are used there for a nonprofit and for an educational purpose. But different domains are used for different purposes. .com is the typical one, the one that you are going to see the most. But if you're searching on Google, which is a tool that extracts keywords as opposed to long website addresses, you don't have to stay consistent with typing in a full format, but just kind of keywords like Amazon or find a backpack that's under $25. You don't really have to type in that full address from www to the domain. Okay, so there are a few things that we're going to look at that you can do on the internet. Joe, you can go to the next slide. I'm not sure we're going to get to all of these today, but we're going to start now with questions. And I'm actually going to, give me 1 second. I am going to pull up something on my screen. This is something cool I'm going to show you, and it's regarding questions on the internet. Okay, so if everyone can see my screen right now, you can see that I have a question at the top of the screen. It says, "What is the current time in New York City?" ? And if I type this into Google, I will get the answer to the question. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's stated very nicely, and I'll get the answer that I'm looking for. Now, Google, just like messages, isn't as formal and doesn't require so many words. So actually, if I was doing this with a smaller group, I would have you kind of guess which words to be taken out. But I'm going to do this just so we don't have too much time. You could actually scratch every word in this sentence except for the word time, and get the same exact answer. No punctuation necessary. And you'll get the same answer as typing in the full question. And the reason why is because what is unnecessary? The word current. If you search in time, Google can guess that you want to know the time. If you want to know the time an hour ago, you would have to state that. And then because I'm in New York City, I don't have to state that. If you want to see the time in Israel, where I'm not, then you have to include the location. But because I'm asking for the time where I am, that's not something you have to include. So Joe's now going to screen share the internet. Let's stop this. And we are going to try both of these questions and see if they work. The first one's going to be the longer question, which is what is the current time in New York City? And then we're just going to put in time and see if we get the same answer. So Joe, you first go to Google. So here's the Google homepage, and we see we have our search bar in the middle. Let's type in what is the current time in New York City. Oh, wait, so you can see at the top, 12:02 p.m. Eastern time. Great, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Now let's try getting rid of all the other words in the statement except for the key one, which is time. Joe, you could also scratch New York City. Great. Okay, so you can see that we got the same response. If you are looking for a time in another location, you definitely need to include the location. But just because we're asking for the time where we are right now, then it is okay that you don't include the location. Okay, 1 second. Okay, let's go back to my screen. Okay, next thing is shopping. Everyone can look at the question on the screen, or really a statement. Please show me the book To Kill a Mockingbird online for free. So there's also a bunch of irrelevant things here, but you will get the response you're looking for by looking at that question there. But let's scratch out a few things. So you actually do need, the shortest isn't always the best, but in some cases, you do need to include some extra words. So the title happens to be long. So I'm going to type in To Kill a Mockingbird. We definitely need that full title. That's definitely necessary. If you just type in Mockingbird, you might get the bird. You can't just type in To Kill. Maybe that something will come up, but you should stay consistent and type in the full title. You definitely need to include the term book. Because there is a Broadway show, there is a movie, so you have to be specific that that's something that's necessary. And you also want to include the term online, because you don't want them to show you how to order the book to get printed. You want to read it online. And then lastly, you want free. You don't want to be paying for a book. So you can see that every term in this phrase is relevant and important to include, even if it might look a little longer. You might get the response you're looking for by just typing in To Kill a Mockingbird. You might have to do some scrolling, but to find exactly what you're looking for, the phrase in blue is the best use of terms. So Joe's now going to go back to the internet, and let's try both of these terms. The first one, please show me the book To Kill a Mockingbird online for free. The phrase please show me is typically never relevant. So that's something you usually don't have to include, but Joe's going to type it in, Mockingbird online for free. All right, and let's click on the first link that comes up. And it looks like it says 285 pages. This looks like the full book. Great. This is exactly what we're looking for. Now let's go back and use our new term, which is To Kill a Mockingbird book online free. And you can see that that's not a formal sentence. It doesn't really make sense, but you're putting in the important keywords that are necessary to get what you're looking for. So if we type this in, you can click on one of the links that comes up. And this looks like it's here, chapter 1. This looks like it's the same results, and you can go from chapter to chapter. I also saw the second link was the same one we saw originally. So it's the same concept, but it's really important when you're doing searches to make sure you're using the shortest text as possible, but also the most precise. Okay, Joe, you could stay here. Julia is now going to show you on Google what you could do regarding shopping.
Okay, so through Google, you can either access different websites if you want to go shopping. So as we showed you in the past, there are many different shopping websites depending on what you want to buy. You can go to Amazon, you can go to Gap for clothing, which we showed you. There's Fresh Direct for mostly food, and there's many different websites depending on what you want to buy. Or if you don't want to shop in a specific website, you're not sure exactly where you want to get this product from, you can just type it straight into Google. So if Joe was looking for a new Apple computer, he could type in Apple computer straight into Google, and then he could see different websites that are selling an Apple computer. So instead of looking only in one specific website, he can just type in Apple computer into Google, and this will give him a list of different websites that are selling an Apple computer. The first one being Apple, of course, and then underneath it you could see he could buy it from Best Buy or different websites that are selling Apple computers. Then underneath it, it will show Amazon. So you can click on these different websites to determine where you want to buy the Apple computer from. But using the internet, you're able to get a full list of different places that sell Apple computers.
Great. So Julia actually went to Google, right, and typed in Apple computer, and that's something you could do. But you could also go to the website, like you go to Amazon.com, you go to Apple.com and search from there. So Julia actually did the first one for me. The phrase was, "I want to buy a computer made by Apple." Apple computer, you know, that works the same way. You could just type in those two words and get the same results. I also have an example down below here, which is the same search, but on different places. So if we search running shoes under $15 into Nike or Google, Nike is a company that sells shoes, you know, precisely. It's exactly a shoe company. Google is everywhere. So people sometimes ask me, where do I go to find something like this? Because Google is for everything. So why not use Google? And the answer is, if you know where you want to buy something, you should go to their website first. You should not use Google. You should first go to Nike.com or Amazon.com or Apple.com. Then do your searching there. But if you're not sure, use Google, because Google will put everything together. So if you say something into Google like running shoes under $15, it will not only show you Nike, but it will show you a bunch of different companies that have running shoes under $15, and that way you could use Google as kind of a reference tool to actually what to purchase. If you know where you want to purchase something, you should go to their website directly. Okay, our next category is called calculations, and there are three things you could use this for. The first one's the very simple. It's just a math equation. What is the answer to the equation 273 plus 15? You could actually get rid of most of the information in this passage and just put the actual equation. 273 plus 15, you'll get your answer. You definitely don't have to include what is the answer. If you're typing in an equation, Google is looking to find you the answer. You don't have to put that in. The next one is sales tax. You could find the sales tax on a price. It says, what is the sales tax in New York? This one, you have to include the term sales tax. You have to include New York, even though that's where you are, because sales tax differs everywhere. And it's important to include that those NY, because it's a little bit different in different places. So you have to include that. And then obviously the price. You don't really have to include the dollar sign in this case, but you probably get the same answer with it. And then lastly is you can calculate tip. So what is the 10% tip of $100? You can get rid of what is the and just put in 10% tip of $100. In this case, it is important to include the dollar sign because you're dealing with how to present like a tip on top of money. So you have to include the dollar sign, because 10% tip of 100, it could be 100 like basketballs. You have to be clear what you're stating. And then you also don't need these extra zeros at the end. That's a bunch of things you could do. I'm sure you could also do like point, if you know math, like 0.10 of 100, which would give you the same information. There's a bunch of things you could do. So Joe's now going to open up the Google, and we're going to try a few things. The first one is this equation. So let's try typing in. We're going to skip the longer messages, and Joe will just type in 273 plus 15, which is just the example of the math equation we gave. 15. All right, and you see it gave us our answer, and it also gives us a calculator. So if we want to take that, for example, and divide it by 2, so you could do that. Joe can then use the calculator directly there, as opposed to retyping it in, and can get the answer directly there. So Google makes it a little easy for you. The next thing is like, what is the sales tax in New York of $12.50? Joe's now going to type in sales tax NY 1250. Those keywords are necessary. We don't need the of or the in or the what is. Those are kind of add-ons. So let's do that. And hit enter. And let's click on the first link. And you could see that this is a calculator. You could type in the price before tax. You could type in the percent of the tax, and then it will give you the price after that percent is incorporated. So you could do that as well here. So we said $12.50. Joe, you could write before tax price is $12.50. 12.5, and then calculate. And you can see that the after-tax price, it says is 13.31, and that's including the tax. So it gives you the sales tax and then it included. Joe, let's go back to Google. And the last thing was tip. So we're going to now type in 10% tip of $100. This is important to include the $sign. This is probably my coolest one. You're going to see something really fascinating about this. Google actually gives you kind of this panel here where you could adjust the tip using the plus and the minus sign, and also the number of people who you're with. So if we change the bill to $200, which you can now do directly there, Joe, you could do that into that bar there. Joe could just easily change the number directly from there. Joe could adjust the tip. Let's make it 18%, Joe. Let's do that. Joe could just hit the plus, or you could adjust it in the box. And let's say we're eating with 4 people. So Joe will then increase the number of people from 1 to 4. And it will then say the tip per person, which is $9, and then how much each person has to pay to fulfill both the total amount of the bill and the tip included, which is $59. You could bring this up to, eating with 100 people. And it will you can see as Joe keeps clicking on the plus, the total per person will continue to get smaller and smaller. Okay. All right, let's stay on Google. Julia, you can now show photos.
Okay, so the internet, Google, also is able to show you photos through a program called Google Images. So as you could see, even on this tab that Joe is on right now, next to this all button is images right here. And if Joe were to click on images, it would show images of what he has typed into the Google search bar. So 10% tip of $100, it's showing him money because that's related to what his search is about. But if Joe wanted to type in to Google Images any other keyword, it would show him images of that. So if, let's say, Joe were to type into the search bar cookies or something, it would show Joe on Google images of cookies, and Joe would be able to search through them. Let's say he needed it for a presentation or anything. You're able to find tons of images depending on what you need using Google Images.
Great. Okay, and then the last thing is maps, which is finding directions and locations. So if Joe goes to the Google homepage, I'm going to recommend that the best way to, no, Joe, can you go back to Google? The best way to do this is not by typing it into the Google search bar, but by going to a program called Google Maps. You can access this by clicking on the 9 dots all the way at the top right of the screen. If you click on that, you'll see many more Google applications like YouTube, Play, News, Gmail, Contacts, Google Drive, Google Calendar, Google Translate, many different things. But the one that we're going to pay attention to today is that one all the way at the top right that says Google Maps. It says Maps, and that's how you'll access it by clicking on the 9 dots and then that little icon at the top right. So Joe can click on that. And then and you can see that this is what Google Maps looks like. It kind of shows you a nice overview of the map. So let's say Joe types in Central Park. Let's do that as an example. You can see that Joe's not typing he's not typing an address, but by typing in even famous locations like a keyword, it will also give that information. It also gives other suggestions like the Central Park Zoo, Central Park West, but we're going to click on the first one that just says Central Park, New York, New York, and it will now bring the spotlight of the map to where Central Park is located. Now, as you can see at the bottom right, there's a button that says Satellite. I'll box it. And to get a more descriptive and detailed view of Central Park, you should click on the button that says Satellite all the way at the bottom left. Joe, you could do that. Bottom left. Joe over here. And then you could see that now our view of Central Park is about to get a lot more detailed and specific and even more realistic. Joe could zoom out. Joe could see different locations. You could see how much nicer this looks than looking at the kind of 2D colorful map. But you can now see, really detailed views of locations. If you want to get directions to a place, you then click on the directions button on the left side of the screen, all the way on the left. And you could type in the starting point, and the ending point will automatically be the place that you typed in originally, which is Central Park. You could type in any location, and it will give you the distance and how long it will take you to get there. And occasionally it will give you different routes. Like, for example, if you have to get a toll one way, it might say, this is a toll-free route, which might take a little bit longer, but it will give you that option. And you could print the directions if you need by clicking on the little printer at the top right of that pop-up. So once again, by going to google.com, clicking on the 9 dots and going to map, you can access a program called Google Maps. You could then type into the search bar a location or a keyword. Joe typed in Central Park. You could switch from the map view to satellite view, which is a more descriptive and detailed view, by clicking on the button that says satellite all the way at the bottom left. And to find directions to the place, you click on the button that says directions all the way on the left side of the screen. And it will tell you how long it will take you to get there, and also how many miles, and the best routes depending on if you want to pay a toll or if you don't, or if you want the least traffic, or if you don't want to go on a highway. Meaning there are different possibilities, but the number one option, the one that will show you all the way at the top of the screen, is the one that will take you the shortest time.